Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know. Carl rings the bell and the members show to the GMP morning show. Featured guests will come and they will blow your mind. The audience will do so in kind. The little vanity mixed with some insanity on the morning show with GMP. Hey, Gumpers.
Hola, bon dia, alegria. A hastily gulped bit of tea there. Nearly getting in the way of things. Hola, bon dia, alegria. Munson here from expatsportugal.com with the Good Morning Portugal show, live stream and podcast. Base camp. If you're wondering what's happened to Suze is in the country. I think you know that. And a bit of van trouble, but still managed to set up a base camp last night north of Caldash. Never go anywhere without your swan. Is that a real swan or not? But look at that. That's looks like she's setting up for an outside broadcast or giving, I don't know, confessions or pardons to people, to passers by. But set up base camp here in Portugal and may well be at our meetup today, if circumstances allow. It'd be lovely to meet you, Suze, and anyone else who wants to come along to the Silver Coast meetup today. And for that, I think it's going to be another Palmeira day. What's the weather looking like, folks? Maybe you could let me know. Oh, no, I've got my own weather, haven't I, that I can have a look at. But for some reason, this is kind of patchy. Oh, 13 degrees and cloudy. Microsoft does try and be helpful. Doesn't always work out, as we know. But 13 degrees and cloudy. I wonder what the future, the prognosis is for the weather today here on the Silver Coast. But I'm thinking it's a Palmeira day. I will make the official announcement. And if you're coming and you'd like a say in that, you're very welcome. Give me a shout in the comments this morning or send me a message, 913-590-303, the Portuguese number, which is the WhatsApp number for me and the Good Morning Portugal studio or back bedroom. So how are you doing this morning? We've got some lovely pictures. We've got a lovely guest for you this morning. Banner, didn't do that. A few things going on behind the scenes this morning. It was quite... I was late out of bed. These Wednesdays are when Mrs. M, not every week, most weeks, I think, or every other week possibly, talks to Rick in Bali. Rick's an interesting fella, and they have a chat. But because it's Bali time, she has to get up at 6:30. No, 5:30, I think. She's up at 5:30, and then everything gets. I get my routine messed about with warm toilet seat sort of stuff, that sort of thing. But anyways, ask anything about Portugal Wednesday. I don't think I've got time to write a massive banner for you this morning, or I'll do that a little bit later on. But point being, ask anything about Wednesday. Ask anything about Portugal Wednesday. And we've got Paul Husby here. Paul, let me just show you a picture of Paul. Paul's a great fella who came along to one of our meetups. Here he is. Cycling across the United States, I believe. We'll ask you more about this when he comes on at around 9:15 this morning. And, of course, Dougie's on. And I wonder if Dougie's going to be packing his lycra this morning. The Loveland Pass, elevation, 11,990 feet. The Continental Divide. Where's that then? I think some of you will know better than me. And another photo. We'll show these again and get Paul to explain. But, yeah, the Loveland Pass. Looks like he cycled up there, the crazy fool. And there he is enjoying a bit of downhill action. And who doesn't enjoy a little bit of downhill action first thing in the morning? So looking forward to talking to Paul, who settled here on the Silver Coast. I don't think this is his final dream place. I think he's enjoying it, but I don't think it's quite right for him, as we'll find out at around 9:15 this morning. And some lovely information that's come in from Rebel Mama. Oh, no. Talking to Paul with me is Dougie. Dougie, don't know if Dougie's in Spain, in Portugal, or in his homeland in Wales, but it's a bit like an Englishman, a Welshman, and an American walk into a radio show this morning. What could possibly go wrong? So Dougie joining us from around 9 o'clock, and he wrote that Brexit article. Did any of you have a look at that this morning? Let's have a look. Let's have a look at the comments in the chat this morning, see how everybody's doing. And Pedro's in. That's good to see. Deagle, Matty, Pete, Kate, lots of the regulars in. Lovely to see you all. Bon dia, Carl from Deagle. What's people's views on Portugal's Eurovision song? Saudade. I like it, especially for a Eurovision song. Very softly sung by Maro. Marrow. That doesn't translate so well, does it? When you think of marrow in English. Marrow. Maybe should I go with marrow so it doesn't sound just like a great big thing that's grown in the garden that is a prize winner at the village fete. Let's hope they win. I've got to be honest with you. I played it last night. I hadn't heard it until last night. I was just going to bed and pressed the button to hear Portugal's entry for the Eurovision Song Contest. Is the final this Saturday? Can you confirm that for us, Deagle? But I would like that song, but in a different context. I think that's going to go down like basically wind in a spacesuit. It's not a bad song, don't get me wrong, but it's like, you know, when I think of Eurovision, I think of people dressed up as heavy rock space Vikings or something like that, with lots of glitter and rah-rah skirts and, you know, lights, camera, action, and upbeat and positive. Now, Saudade is none of that, is it? Let's face it. And in the right context, she's got a great voice, and it's a great song, and it's slightly discordant, it's on the Black Keys, isn't it? That tune. And it's going to go down like a lead balloon on Eurovision Saturday night. I would have thought that's just, you know, that's how it hit me. I'd listen to that in a different context. But for Eurovision, I'm thinking, while everyone's up and buzzing, and we know what the Eurovision crowd are like, you know, they're really, you know, they're really, I don't know what, they've had 5 shredded wheat that evening, haven't they? And they are ready to party. Then Saudade comes on, and everyone's looking at each other like, oh dear, what happened? Cheer up, love. We'll see. We shall see. Matty! Hola, bon dia, alegria, todos de Amsterdam. Oh, I've got a little bit of static buzz there. I had a power cut in the bay yesterday. Hope things hold up until 10 o'clock this morning. We shall see. Bon dia, alegria, a disapproving glance at my long grass. Ooh. From my builder's wife is enough for me to mow all day. So have a fabulous show and great morning. Glorious sunshine here, 33 degrees yesterday. So he's out mowing on the tractor. He's had the sideways glance of the builder's wife, which just tells you everything you need to know. Get that grass cut, Pete. Probably out there now. Numbing his bottom. He has a bit of a problem with numb bum, apparently, from riding around on the tractor for too long. I don't know I dread to think what the cure is for that. A few sharp smacks on the bottom to improve circulation. But no, I'm not available, Pete. Bon dia, alegria, gumpers. Meetup day. Yay! Mr. and Mrs. Duck are in the bay. I'll see you later on with a few proverbs. Ninguém perde nada por perguntar. Nobody loses anything by asking. Well, there you go. Now, that one I need to immortalize, because that is what we need when we go to the Q&A part of our webinar, which tomorrow is renting and buying in Portugal. Going to be great to be talking to Savvy Cat Anna again. I haven't spoken to her for ages, but ask her anything about renting and buying in property in Portugal. Sorry, let me just do that again. Ask anything about renting and buying property in Portugal. Come on, Carl, get a grip, man. Ninguém perde nada por pergunta. Nobody loses anything by asking. Come along, ask your questions about renting and buying in Portugal tomorrow night from 7:30, and then ask more questions if you're a Premium Plus member. Open the doors at 9 o'clock for the Premium Plus get together, where you can ask more questions. The only silly question is the one that doesn't get asked. We're very fond of that phrase. Coming to those music flyers. They are flyers. They're digital flyers of music that's going to be happening in the north of Portugal. Rebel Mama rose to the challenge yesterday to knock Andy off his throne. Not quite there yet. I mean, Andy's service to the community with his publicity from the Bairrada region is exemplary. It is the bar that has been set. It is the benchmark for all publicity coming in. But you did pretty well yesterday, Rebel Mama, as everyone will find out in just a moment. Os cães ladram, mas o caravana passa. The dogs bark, but the caravan passes. What does that mean then, I wonder? Anyone care to hazard a guess at that? I like it. I like the sound of it. And I think it might be one of the lyrics in the Eurovision Song Contest entry from Portugal. Sounds like that sort of thing. Saudade, saudade. The dogs are barking, but the caravan is passing. It's not a winner. I don't think it's a winner. I will eat what should I eat? What Portuguese thing? I shall eat my clay Barcelos cockerel if Portugal win on Saturday. Now, that's too much of a claim, isn't it? I don't want to be doing that on Monday. It'd be bad for my digestion. I shall have a numb bum myself, just like Pete, if I eat a clay Barcelos cockerel. Anyway, if you just joined us, don't worry. Os invejosos mais sentem os bens alheios. Does he do these on purpose? With this really complicated Portuguese cure. Os males propios. The envious feel the goods of others more than their own evils. Which reminds me, I was distracted. I bought 4 more packets. That range of reposado shot I was telling you about, I bought 4 packets yesterday. Mrs. Duck, you're going to love the new flavors, but I've forgotten to bring them up into the studio. Mrs. M, can you help? The envious feel the goods of others more than their own evils. Oh, I see. That's pretty powerful, isn't it? So the jealous, the envious, instead of looking at themselves, they are looking at the projection screen of their envy in other people. Oh my goodness, where are these from, T-Duck? Cuando o amigo pide now ha amaña. When the friend asks, there is no tomorrow. We had that one yesterday. He's messing with my mind, isn't he? When the friend asks, there is no tomorrow, the friend sends you a quote that you read yesterday. What's that in Portuguese, I wonder? But it's a classic, so worthy of repetition there. When the friend asks, there is no tomorrow. Remember that? A test of friendship in Portugal. Get on with it. Rise to the occasion. Now amanhã. Bon dia, Pete, from Matty. I hope this time no farmers saw. There we go. We're talking about the number. Try an extra pillow, maybe. Oh, bless. Riding around on his tractor with an inflatable rubber ring or an extra pillow. Let us know how it goes, Pete. Feliz quarta-feira a todos today. From James, they made this statue of me this morning. And this is, yes, Will Rogers' quote of the day. He tests my memory, this man, doesn't he? Never miss a good chance to shut up. Well, that doesn't apply here, does it? Thank you, Mr. Rogers, for that. Not that, Mr. Rogers. Bon dia, Carl. Nice one. Thank you very much for that, James. We're enjoying the Will Rogers here. Bon dia, Carl and friends. How you doing, Kate? See you later at the meetup. Back in the UK this morning after house hunting again. It's never easy in Portugal, or is it? Well, this is probably a Portuguese phrase as well, Gary. It is when it is, and it isn't when it isn't. Sometimes it's very easy and it just happens and you think, well, that was easy. And sometimes you get setbacks like you've done, I'm sad to say. And it's like, oh, will this ever end? Let it, this too shall pass. This too shall pass. What's that in Portuguese? Good morning, Gumpers. Anyway, good luck. Boa sorte, Gary, in your continued search. Don't give up, mate. Good morning, Gumpers, from my campsite on the Silver Coast. I've shown a picture already, Suze, overlooking the horseshoe-shaped bay. Oh, you're on that campsite. Fantastic. I'll come and visit you because I want to have a little nosy around that campsite and maybe get a review from you. Need a mechanic. Suze, I've introduced you to Joao this morning. I hope you've seen that now. Joao's thinking to himself, what on earth is going on? This Englishman has introduced me to a woman who's just driven from Finland. What's going on here? That is Joao the mechanic, Suze. Talk to him in that group. It is funny, isn't it? Sometimes you don't know you've been added to a group and you talk to the person who you think it's from, and sometimes you talk about the other person. You haven't added me to a group with that idiot of you. Not talking about you, Joao. I'm talking about how this can happen in other situations. Oh, you haven't. I don't want to speak to that plonker. You're already in the group with them. Yikes. Back up the truck. It's all immortalized in digital on WhatsApp. Oi, oi, Savalois. Oh, that's a nasty looking picture. Is that a member of the British royal family with the poor life choice there? I don't quote me on that, but I'm keen to find out what's going on there. Oi, oi, Savalois, which is an old North London greeting. No, sorry, I beg your pardon. It's a London greeting. You might hear that in any of the compass points of London, right? How would you position that greeting, which many people here won't have heard? Oi, oi, Savalois. What? Or should I be offended or welcomed by that, I wonder? So let's have a bit of this now. Finish my tea. I thought that was going to disappear on its own. I've got to push a button. Do it every day. I'm forgetting what to do here. Distracted by a lovely cup of tea. Thank you, Mrs. M, for that. Was delicious. First one. We're getting to a point where I've got yet lazy and used to leaving the UHT milk out on the countertop. It's not happening now. The nature's own barometer, curdled milk, tells you that you've got to put the milk away now. We're that time of the year. Right, Salazar. It's not King Edward. It is Salazar, I believe. Today in Portuguese history, 1936, Salazar, already prime minister, makes himself minister for war. See, that's what you can do when you're a dictator, isn't it? get up in the morning in a bad mood. Right, that's it. I'm making myself minister for war. Watch out, everybody. Salazar was concerned with international affairs, especially in Spain. He was very controlling. Yeah, what was the atmosphere like between Portugal and Spain in the 1930s, I wonder? You can only guess, right? And only refer to your cultural reference points. A little bit later on, we see, of course, in Gloria, how things were in Portugal. But it must have been so different. He was very controlling. That's an understatement, isn't it? And that could be from the Street Dictionary of dictators, dictator, noun. Very controlling person. And by the end of 1936, he was prime minister, war minister, foreign affairs minister, and finance minister. See, that's what you can do. It's no laughing matter, dictatorship. I mean, I'm seeing the funny side of this morning. No offense to anybody, but this is just the madness, isn't it, of human behavior, that one person sets themselves up in this position. I mean, they've obviously got some help, and they've put people into a state of fear, presumably to wield this sort of power. But then just making the decision, okay, I'll be war minister. Right, that's it. I don't like how things are going with Spain. I'm foreign affairs minister as well. And by the way, I'm minister for catering. So lunch better be good. It's me. No, someone else can do that. Finance minister as well. So by the end of 36, he was all of those and probably other titles as well, as and when he felt like it. He also rarely met with the president or the head of his corporatist parliament. So just alone in the what's the equivalent? What's the dictator's equivalent of the ivory tower? The fortress, I suppose, the concrete fortress. Meanwhile, or the palatial fortress. Meanwhile, political tensions grew throughout this period. What a terrible period in Portuguese history that is. But what an interesting thing to draw our attention to. Thank you very much. So Salazar in 1936, on this day in Portuguese history, made himself Minister for War. Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you for the continued property listings as well. I still think if we add all the property listings together, or the first few, we've still got a balance sheet there, which gives you, I think you could select another 50 of the types of properties you've been sending me, and still not catch up with the millions that I've already spent in euros with my fantasy property purchases. So keep them coming, mate. We'll do another Casa do Dia today. Bon dia. We'll go through one with Dougie, shall we? Bon dia, Carl y a todos, and maybe with Paul as well. Paul may well be looking for a home somewhere around Portugal. I might be interested to know what good value you can get. Morning, Moaz, and from Suze to Moaz, I responded to your message. Hope it helps to broaden your Portuguese community. I wonder. We'll find out. Bon dia, James, as well from the sunny shores. Not as hot here. Better for me. Okay, so the north was hot for you, was it? Or maybe you were between the north and here, which I make central, obviously. And the sea breeze is helping, perhaps, for you, Suze. If you're in San Martino de Porto, I'll be very offended if you don't come to our meetup. You're not far away on the campsite. If it's the one I'm thinking thinking about as well. There, Suze, obrigado for the recommendation for the LGBT expat groups. Oh, well done. And Baldylock's also in. James and Moaz. James, Moaz. Saying hi early this morning. This is before the show even started, folks. Would we be eligible to emigrate to Portugal if my husband and I have arthritis and have had knee replacements? They do not check your level of health, Don, and say terrible, prejudicial things like, no, if you don't have your own knees, you can't come. No, not at all. The vetting procedure, such as it is really about your health cover, health insurance you have to have. So that it's certain that you can be looked after, and the same with finances, and you've got somewhere to live, so that you have health cover, you have finances sufficient enough to look after yourself, and you have a roof over your head in the form of a lease, or you've bought a building. That's pretty much it. Tune in on Mondays to talk to the expert, Gilda, who's here on a Monday, about that. But they're not going to stop you, Don, on the grounds of health here in Portugal as we stand. Biggest surprise for me in Portugal, shelf milk. There we go. I didn't know Suze was talking about milk as well. Shelf milk, as in what? UHT, it lasts a long time on the shelf and you don't have to put it in the fridge, but don't leave it out. Even the UHT curdles in the end, as I found to my chagrin this morning. Buddy is in this morning as well, getting ready for the meetup today. I hope Bon Dia Gumpa's on a glorious day. Looking forward to the meetup today. Can recommend the same mechanic as was recommended. I'm glad to hear this to me by Carl. As now I have my car back with a head gasket again. Happy days. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. So there you go. Joao, I hope, will be happy with all this expat business that's coming his way. Brian Taylor, bon dia Gumpers, and Antonio F. in, and Laura P. all in this morning. But I'm not an expert, says James, but I do not believe your health is a reason to be denied a visa. I've never heard of that, Don, but it's a good question to ask on Ask Anything About Portugal Wednesday. Bon dia. Look at this passive aggression here. I love Carl's prompt start time. You've no idea, Andrew, of the stress I was going through behind the scenes, only to arrive and glide across the broadcasting waters like a swan whilst my webbed feet are paddling furiously beneath the surface. It's Portugal, man. Chill. What's 3 or 4 minutes between pals? I'll tell you what, I might start a bit earlier tomorrow just to put things right and surprise you. But maybe I won't. We want the show. We want the show. This is still before the show started. Did anyone else shout that at the Saturday matinee? Oh, no. Okay, let me see if I can make sense of this. Did anyone else shout that at the Saturday matinee as a kid? We want the show. Oh, God, that's some of the longest time in your life, isn't it? Waiting for the film to start when you're a kid. Yeah, I didn't shout that, but I know exactly the condition you're talking about. Jack Polly, also here this morning. Dad, from James. Good morning, people. Just another day in paradise. Lee's feeling it this morning. 8:33, Carl. Come on, relax. Solo Pedro. Is that Pete there? Not some of our other Pedro named friends here in the Portuguese community that tune in. Always happy when Portuguese people tune in and then continue to do so and aren't disgusted by our behavior. Bon dia, alegria, Gumpers, on this fine day. So maybe see you later. Alan, hang on. I think that's Steve. I wonder how much Carl was late to class. It wasn't really allowed at my school. So, I was just, nonchalantly early. You got to show the boss who's not the boss. That's what my school life was like. School life was like. Man cave, lads. Good morning. The man cavers are here, beating their chests towards each other. Don't be worried about that, anybody. It's just what they do. They're harmless. It's a show of testosteronic power, signifying nothing, as I think Shakespeare, not in a bad way, but as Shakespeare might have said about them. Did Shakespeare say anything about the man cavers? And does the man cave go back to British Elizabethan times, I wonder? Do you have a lineage like that? Masons, or is it a secret society? Obviously, you can't tell me the answer to that. As far as I know, this cannot be a matter of considering you ineligible. Laura P saying to you, Don, what does it matter? What does matter is proof you can financially sustain yourself and no criminal records. And even criminal records expire after a while, such as Portugal's open-mindedness. I don't think it blights your chances forever here in Portugal. Obviously, depending on the severity. Fly in the studio alert. I shall be swatting, and not in an academic way, this morning. Don, many of the Western immigrants to Portugal are vintage. Yes, Moaz, you're right. With all sorts of replacements, I suspect. People planning to retire, and they are bringing all kinds of health problems, including me. You're not a health problem. Oh, I see what you mean. Hola, meus gente. Tudo bem? Tudo? What's that? Is that what happens in northern Portugal? You ask a few times there, but answer. Carl, show the pig's head. Andrew, I am not showing the pig's head. That was really rather sobering and awkward, sending me that. But I did show it to someone else, actually. I showed it to the guy in the San Martino de Porto tourist office, because we were talking about Leitão. But your pig's head that you took a picture of in Pingados, I will not be showing at this time of the morning, and for the sensibilities of our vegan and vegetarian viewers. But you get in touch with Andrew if you want the pig's head, which is not, I'll warn you now, is not a British pub. Morning, everyone, from Owen. We need to talk, don't we? We need to get this sorted. The next outside broadcast and the barbecue base. I've been to... Mrs. M pointed out last night that we have been to 4 Parc de Merendas in 5 days. It's a tour. Did you hear the fly there? I think there might be 2 flies in the studio. I've got to shut the window. I'm loving the breeze, but I'm not loving the flies. Is that an erotic novel entry? Palmera, it is. Okay, Baddy has decided. Palmera this afternoon, 1 till 3. I said midday, didn't I? It's fine if you turn up at midday. You'll get a table that way, and you can chat with Nelson, the proprietor, and say, I'm with the crazy expats. Oh, Dougie's here. Dougie will be here at 9 o'clock. He's just getting ready in the green room, bracing himself possibly for a bit of pushback after his opinion piece in Looking forward to it already, eh, Doug? Palmera, shaking his head. Palmera, it is. So yes, 1 till 3 officially, but there's no harm in turning up early and getting yourself a seat or eating early because it's quite difficult networking when you've got a mouthful of bifana. Erotic novel entry. We're doing well this morning. Bon dia, Owen, from Antonio F. Owen from Andrew as well. And we're just into the comments that were live on the show this morning. Incredible. Thank you, everybody, for your lovely comments. So let me just show you very quickly these posters before I forget. They've been sent in by Rebel Mama. Music around the country. And another one from Andy. Andy's keeping up. Let me just take that comment off the screen so you can see what we were talking about here before we go to Dougie. I think he may be in Wales this morning. It looks like he has a Welsh backdrop. 26th, 27th, 28th of May. Alfandega de Porto, the Ornatos Violeta, or Ornatos Violeta, Don Diablo. Oh, Robin Schulz. I've heard of Robin Schulz. T-Rex playing, is that, well, it has to be a remake, doesn't it? A remix. Or just a new band nicking the name, but the Jesus and Mary chain and the Waterboys and the GNR. Is that Guns N' Roses? No. Playing on the 26th, 27th, and 28th there, respectively, variously. And Jornal Noticias sponsoring that one, North Festival of Portugal. That is what JN stands for, isn't it? That's pretty cool. That's quite a lineup there. And you will see, you'll recognise. Oh, Riot are on as well. Is that the Riot of Gumpers? Have we got a band together? I think at some point we will have our own band, won't we? A Gumper band of some kind. Here's a poster from Vodafone's Paredes de Cura from the 16th to the 20th of August, just announced presumably. Sam the Kid, con Orquestra y Aurelia Negra. What's that? The Black Ear. Mao Morta, Linda Martini, Mulinex. I bet he's a good mixer. Is he a DJ? Mulinex, DJ Mulinex, excellent mixer. Pluto, Samuel Uria, Benjamin, You Can't Win, Charlie Brown, etc., etc. There from the 16th to the 20th. Great names, Rapage Ego and the Twist Connection and the Lemon Lovers. Who wouldn't be a lemon lover at that time of year in Portugal? Thank you for that as well. Couple more of these music posters. The last one, you'll recognize even more bands. Quite an amazing ultimate poster to show you this morning at the climax of this selection from Rebel Mama by alphabetical order 999. Isn't it funny? Numbers come first in alphabetical order. Adiel, Amelie Lange, Anastasia Christensen, Bejanek at the Neopop Festival. Neopop. This one looks cool, doesn't it? With its violet poster. And I can't see the date. Yes, I can. 10th to the 13th of August. 15 years with you in Viana do Castelo of the Neopop Festival. Very good. Thank you, Rebel Mama. Loving all these music posters. And look at this. EDP are stumping up some cash for this on the 25th, 26th, and 27th. Vila de Mouros. They've got a bridge by the look of it. Looks like Ponte Lima, doesn't it? But it's not. It's Vila de Mouros, which I've not heard of, I'm sad to say. But look at this. Gary Newman, Suede, Bauhaus, Iggy Pop, Limp Bizkit, and Placebo. And Battles. I want to think people turn up looking for the Beatles there. But Battles also on that bill there. Wolf Mother and Huberstank, I've not heard of, but I'm sure they're very good, as is Tara Perdida. She's probably late as well to the gigs with a name like that as well. So look at that. Placebo, Limp Bizkit, Iggy Pop, Bauhaus, Suede, and Gary Newman. Legends in Portugal there of 80s music for sure. Gary Newman and Bauhaus. Incredible. And a bit of 90s action, what with Suede there. A bit of Victorian action from Iggy Pop. And Limp Bizkit and Placebo. That's quite amazing. 25th, 26th, and 27th of August. That's when all the festivals seem to be happening here in Portugal. Thank you so much for those, Rebel Mama. It's time to go to Wales now and to add Dougie to the stream. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, very well. Muito bem, obrigado, Doug. Looking beautifully dressed, attired for this morning's show. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you very much. Yes,
Excellent.
I'm back from a month-long trip around mainly Iberia, to be honest, Spain and Portugal, and of course, you know, you had to do France to get there. So yeah.
Such a reluctant France visitor there. What is it like? I mean, presumably you were around there at the time of the election. What was the atmosphere like in France as you were passing through?
There wasn't a great deal of dialogue about it. I don't think. I mean, we certainly didn't hear any. We saw all the posters and all the
Yeah.
various regalias you would usually would. But generally speaking, I think they were fairly cool about it, and I think on the whole, as I understand, they had a fairly low turnout. I think a great deal of French people seem to be reasonably apathetic about it as well. So that was the general vibe I got.
It's a strange combination, though, isn't it? The French psyche when it comes to politics, like apathetic about the ballot box, but like saying stuff a lie and taking to the streets, having a punch out with the police. On the other hand,
Yeah.
it wouldn't appear. But so, what were the highlights of your trip to the Iberian Peninsula, then, Doug?
Oh, of course, we came and visited yourself and the other people in San Martino. That was one of them. But uh, the whole trip was a little bit of a strange one weather-wise. We encountered everything from -4 in France on the way down, which was bracing to say the very least. And of course, when we got onto the Costas and Algarve, it was mid-20s. So a mixed bag, I think it's fair to say.
Yep. And so you're here, you have an encyclopedic knowledge of Portugal. You've been coming to Portugal for decades, I think it's fair to say. But that's an interesting also that you have traveled through France and Spain as well. And we know that many of our American friends come to be in Portugal as an ideal landing strip, landing place. And because it's a great jumping off point as well for the rest of Europe, isn't it? So if you want to know about anything about traveling around Portugal from Doug's encyclopedic knowledge of Portugal and traveling around the rest of Europe, do ask, because you're an occasional visitor to Italy as well, I believe, aren't you?
We do go to Italy. The problem this time, I think, we were going to go to Italy. Italy was where we were heading for, but then we heard reports that there were fuel, especially diesel shortages in the north of Italy,
Yes.
which is where of course, you've got to pass through the north in order to get anywhere else. So basically, we thought, well, we'll knock that one on the head. We don't want to end up in the queues and scratching our heads, wonder we weren't going to get the next gallon of diesel, really. So
Yeah,
so,
can you
so we
imagine
headed
that?
towards.
Yeah, a bit of a riot, an Italian petrol station trying to get fuel there. So that, I mean, this is a real and present challenge to your travel arrangements. Of course, the fuel shortages. Not without that concern in any part of Europe at the moment, or certainly at the time you were traveling.
No, we started feeling the effects of the shortages as early as Dover, believe it or not.
Really?
Because
Okay.
oh yeah, everybody knew that the fuel prices were rising at an exponential rate, especially in France. So naturally, all the wagon, van, and motorists, drivers were filling up in England near the port. So that meant that the garages, the forecourts, were short of diesel, not petrol, just diesel. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And that was your choice? Were you diesel powered for your trip on your vehicle?
My car's diesel. Yeah, it's a diesel one. Yeah.
Is it currently in the United Kingdom? Is it currently good to have a diesel or not? Because it changes, doesn't it? Everyone suddenly bought diesels because the price of diesel went down. Is that still a good bet?
No, diesel is extremely expensive here now. Now I think let me just get my head around this. Petrol is more expensive than diesel in Portugal, isn't it?
I don't know.
I
I
think
never
it is.
looked.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, the price has stayed the same for me because I only ever put 20 euros in.
Oh yeah, well I know I do the same thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
just to put it in more often, of course. And yeah, but the question was, is it bad to have a diesel in England? It's certainly not good at the moment. They did encourage people to buy diesel vehicles, didn't they? And unfortunately now, because there's been a change of policy, it's not such a great vehicle to have.
Funny, isn't it? Politicians change their minds, don't they? We notice, yeah, and more fool us possibly for taking the the advice and guidance in the first place with these things. Expect further changes is all I'm going to say about that. Although I suspect we will return to politics this morning. I think you'll be telling us a little bit about your Brexit article. So Palmera, it is. What a great venue that is. So thank you for that. And I think Catherine also wanting to go there. Yeah, Palmera, por favor. Look at this, democracy in action, everybody, which is fine as long as everybody agrees. I'm loving democracy this morning. Sharon H is here too. Hey, Sharon, how are you? Good morning to you. What's all this about then? Love the talking animals. Oh, look at her. All neck and legs, that one. Sounds like British 70s comedy. I'm not sure what they're talking about there. I can't make the meetup today, but definitely coming up next week. Oh, fantastic. Head Gardener McGrady can answer your gardening questions in person next Wednesday. Hola, bon dia. Hope you all have a super time at the meetup today, plus all the other gumpers around Portugal and the world. That's a lovely greeting, Andy. And you sent in a great message this morning. In case everybody missed the Fava Bean Festival, we have the Feira do Tremoso coming up on the 27th, 28th, and 29th. Let me see if you added any further text to that. Have you been to, well, you must have been to one or two festivals in your time here in Portugal. Any stay in your mind, Doug? I'll leave this on the screen for just a moment to prompt your memory.
I remember going to one in Portugal, which celebrated for Moroccan food and that stuff that looked like sawdust. What you couscous? Yeah, well, it was
the stuff that looks like sawdust.
Yeah, but it tastes nice, funnily enough. Yeah.
Doug's culinary input this morning, the stuff that looks like sawdust. Andy's saying, for those of you that missed the Fava Bean Festival with a butterfly and Chianti emoji, don't despair. The Feira do Tremoso is back on the 27th, 28th of May and 29th of May in Cadima, Cantanhede, with lots of top Portuguese bands. Portuguese bands are busy at the moment, from now until August, by the look of it. Bands, stalls, traditional games, events, booze, and, of course, buckets of your favourite Portuguese festival food. Tremoções, I suppose, in the plural there. And if you're an expat, this is the first question we can answer. What on earth are they, and how do you eat them? Are you partial to these with a glass of beer, Doug?
Are they the ones they give you with they look like butter beans, but they're a bit more, the skin's a little harder? Is that the one?
Correct. Yes, yeah. Because Doug, you're meant to take the skin off.
When really?
Did you eat a whole dish full of these with the skin on?
Oh no, I put one in my mouth. I found the skin unpleasant. I didn't bother repeating the exercise. So,
well, that's an erotic novel entry. There's another erotic novel entry there, James, for sure. No, the outer skin must be removed.
You sort of squeeze them, don't you? And it sort of fires into your mouth. Yeah, that's
it's getting worse here. You're meant to the seasoned tremoções eater can, between index finger and thumb, relieve the inner fruit of its outer skin.
That's what I was trying to say, but less eloquently.
Yes. And then that gives you a salty snack that is a perfect accompaniment with a cool or cold ice frozen Portuguese beer. So that's what you'll see at the end of the evening, just a load of tremoço skins around on the floor, signifying a great evening has been had. So it is the beer accompaniment. You can keep your peanuts, tremoções here in Portugal, and that festival there in the Barrada region, Cantanhede. Good excuse to go to Cantanhede.
Back to festivals. You asked me about what I'd done. There was one actually in Ericeira, which was a polvo festival, believe it or not. And I believe they have it there regularly. Yes. Oh dear.
Sorry, I was expecting you to talk a little bit longer there. A little bit of a cough. Polvo, of course, is the octopus festival, and a great place to have it at Ericeira, right on the coast there. Fantastic seafood here in Portugal, as we know. Última pergunta. Is that the name? Same spelling for the word that means the final or last. Ultima. Oh, so it wasn't Ultima Pergunta, who could have been one of those Portuguese bands, actually. Sounds like a neo-pop band, doesn't it? Ultima Pergunta or Pergunta Ultima. But a little bit of Portuguese language tuition going on in the chat this morning. Always love to see that. Chris Smith, but sad news here. Morning all leaving Portugal today. Safe to say, I think you had a great time, Chris. Lovely to meet you and the family. Thank you for bringing bluegrass or stimulating an outbreak of bluegrass here in Portugal, in the capital. So, yeah, terrible news, Chris Smith, that you're leaving. But I think you'll be back soon. I know, he says. I know. You'll be back, won't you, Chris, from Rebel Mama? We need to know. When are you coming back? 8 weeks left in Old Blighty and counting. Oh, everyone's coming in for breakfast this morning, aren't they?
Yeah.
This This is like going back into the pandemic, isn't it? When everyone was working on Zoom and people were walking around in the background. We're used to it now. We've made it normal, which is great. This is the new normal. People walking behind you in your Zoom calls. Buon viaggio. Até a próxima for Chris Smith. Yes, Chris, we are sad to see you going and already looking forward to you returning. Antonio F. Then what about the word that is used that is similar, that means fantastic or great? Ottimo, that would be, wouldn't it? Ottimo. Bon dia from Pam this morning. So you won't be enjoying, Andy Gilchrist, the free museums nights next Saturday in Portugal. Oh, tell us more, Antonio F. Are museums free? Are people being lured into the museums of Portugal next Saturday? I hope there's food and drink. That's the way to lure Portuguese people and tourists into any venue, isn't it? Really, always the way here in Portugal. Food and drink with everything. That's ottimo. There you go. I was right about that. I'm quite pleased with myself. An old way of writing it as well. They dropped the P. They've taken the P, Doug. There.
Somebody, isn't there?
There's always someone taking the P. Sarah Yerman, stay tuned, Sarah. Fellow cyclist Paul will be with us in just a moment. I think you'll have much in common. Jean also here. Jean H, Sharon H, Jean H. Hi, everyone. So great to be here. And we'll see everyone at the meetup. Oh, excellent news. See you there, Jean. Numbum. Do you ever get this? You may prefer not to say, Doug. Numbum. Oh, Paul gets numbum as a cyclist, I'm sure. He might be able to advise us on the right kind of lycra to wear, Doug. Numbum or
4,700 miles in the car, and it was certainly slightly less sensitive than it usually is, veering towards the numb, I rather imagine. Yes.
Is there a scale for bottom sensitivity then, I wonder?
There must be, mustn't there?
There must
be. For everything
be.
else.
Is there a doctor in the house who can advise on such things? I was suggesting a few smart smacks to the bottom to increase circulation, but I wasn't offering my services, you understand. Bon dia, Carl. Do it to yourself. Bon dia, Carl, and all you lovely gumpers. Weather here on the north coast of Ireland. Morning, William. Carl Rain, we have... what's that? He's just saying weather here on the north coast. That means probably bad weather, right? Serious weather. We have the Northwest 200 road racing starting this week here on the north coast. Bikes. All about the bikes this morning, isn't it? It's Garvo here. Look, Gary, it'll be worth it. I didn't see Garvo sneak in this morning. Where is he? Carl, I have now got the photos from our visit to San Martino de Porto. Are they back from the chemist? Let me know where to send. Carl at expatsportugal.com will be fantastic. People still sending their pictures to the chemist. It's exciting, isn't it? Drop them off. 3 weeks later, they're ready. Pay a little bit extra and you can have them in a week. Carl, that midlife crisis tour icon shows Salazar, the famous 20th century Portuguese dictator. Of course, forgive me. I thought it was a member of the British royal family who'd made an incorrect life choice. You remember that, don't you? From the Netflix series. So when you want to answer to tudo bem, which one do you use? Ottimo. I think you can go with Ottimo, can't we? Wait, I think I get it. Lol, tudo bem? Ottimo. Yes! By Jove, I think she's got it. Which film is that from, Doug?
I'm not sure. I was thinking about the bit you said about a royal making a wrong life choice. I think it could be said of Prince Charles. He looked that interested in the state opening of Parliament yesterday, didn't he?
Yes. Don't be disrespectful. Don't be disrespectful of your leader there, Doug. He's the leader of the land that you live in, isn't he?
Absolutely.
That's really satisfying doing a Prince Charles impersonation first thing in the morning, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You're right.
Who doesn't like a Prince Charles first thing in the morning? How about that?
What is that? I'm going to look it up. I'm going to look that up after the show.
You have to ask Camilla, I think.
I mean, there we have millions of Brits potentially going into fuel poverty, and we see a man with a priceless outfit on in a priceless chair in a strange political chamber, looking quite disinterested in the whole business. I mean, I think it was a PR backfire, wasn't it? And I saw it he was on Portuguese TV yesterday. You know, Prince of Wales opening Parliament. I think that's what he was doing the Queen's speech, wasn't he?
He was.
And it was a PR shot in the foot, if you ask me. But
he didn't really look like he wanted to be there, quite frankly, did he? You know, it's
no. Mummy sent me on this bloody awful job again.
I could have been a bit Scotland.
Here we go. We're going to sing the theme tune for Paul's entry now. I want to ride my bicycle. I want to ride my bike. Do you want to do the high bits?
Oh, if it was a Bee Gees song, I'd probably interject there.
All right, let's leave it there. Let's leave it there as we welcome Paul Husby to the screen, new to the Silver Coast. How you doing, Paul? Great to see you here.
Good to see the morning crowd. Thank you for having me, Carl. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, it's so good to have you here. Paul, meet Doug. Doug, meet Paul.
Hello,
Good morning, Paul. How are you?
I'm up early this morning.
Sure looks like it.
I think you're a bit of a night owl, judging from some of our communication. Right?
Yes, I certainly am. Retired, I can do that now.
Oh, okay. And I like how seriously nocturnal are you? Are you one of these characters who gets creative in the wee small hours?
When I don't have the burden of career and a job, I do. I think I'm still on USA East Coast time, actually, and that's not an exaggeration.
Right. Okay. So that's your pattern. Amazing. Ask anything about Portugal today, Wednesday. We've got Doug with us, a Lusophile, and we have new to Portugal, Paul Husby, who, when did you arrive here? Tell us about yourself, Paul, so that people can know who they're dealing with here.
Okay. I'm Paul Husby. I've been in country now for a month and a half, and so far, so good. And I'm a retired high school teacher from the U.S., history and geography-based coursework. And that was my art, if you will. And I did that for 20 years and am pleased to have done that and am pleased to be moving on to my next chapter. For many years, I knew that I wanted to live elsewhere. I'd lived in Australia, New Zealand, Mexico for almost 4 years. So I know something of living outside the USA, and life is short, and we don't have to end up where we're born. So here I am, and so pleased that Portugal has allowed me this opportunity to be here, and I hope to be a good guest.
That's a lovely way of putting it, isn't it? Actually, I like that way of that life's too short, and yeah, completely.
Yeah.
All right. So chip in anytime you want to, Doug, and those of you watching, if you've got any questions for Paul or Doug or me asking anything about Portugal this morning, we've got further questions for you, Paul. Here are some lovely pictures of you at the Continental Zip there, a Loveland Pass. Here you are on your bicycle, because I think you have some aspirations to cycle around Portugal as well. Sarah here this morning, who's ahead of you in that endeavor, who may well be able to help. What is the Loveland Pass? And I think you're glad to be maybe making your way away from it after a brutal climb up to it previously, looking at that picture there.
Wow.
Well, Loveland Pass is one of several Continental Divide passes in Colorado, the most mountainous state in the main part of the United States. And since I'm a geography teacher, I know that most people don't automatically know what that means, Continental Divide. So it divides for those who'd like to know or don't know, the flow of rivers. 10 feet behind me, from where I was standing there, the rivers flow into the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic. And no, the other way around, it flows into the Pacific, and 10 feet in front of me would flow into the Atlantic. It divides the direction of the rivers.
Oh, I say, I think it's quite a challenge, given that you're a geography and history teacher. Do you feel a little bit on the spot this morning?
No. I as a teacher through COVID, I spent month after month after month staring and talking into a screen. So no, it's okay. I'm all right with this.
Okay, so geography and history questions. I would like to ask you if it has a special significance on why you chose Portugal in the first place. Is it geographic, is it historical, or is it sociological that you wanted to come to?
All of those things. A Mediterranean climate. 3% of the Earth's surface of land surface is Mediterranean climate, and Portugal is one of the lucky places that are like that. Chile, southwest corner of Africa, just Cape Town, basically, southwest part of Australia, and around the Mediterranean, including the southern part of Portugal. It's an amazing climate, and anything grows here, almost.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
culturally.
Loving your angle on this. Loving your angle. This is not.
Oh,
This is
good.
Portugal like we've not heard it before, right, Doug? If you
Yeah.
have any questions from this perspective, do ask them, Doug.
Yeah. Please do, anyone. As a history teacher, one of the things that made me unique was that everything starts with geography. History doesn't take place in a parking lot or a textbook. And if a person doesn't have a sense of place, they have no reason to care.
Yes,
What a lovely way of putting it, yeah. And I completely concur with
yes,
that. Yeah.
yeah, amazing. Oh, loving your view this morning.
Okay,
And
another one. Well, why Portugal? Portugal is a parliamentary democracy of the truest sort. And those who come from parliamentary democracies maybe don't appreciate what they have. I come from a country that is said to be the first modern democracy, yet it is a winner-take-all two-party system, which is hardly a source of natural selection, shall we say. And
The same can be said, of course, of the United Kingdom, can't it? Of Britain as a whole. I mean, it's generally speaking, it's
okay,
two parties.
it's become that way,
Yeah.
but the structure doesn't force it to be that way.
Sure.
And that's one of the differences. And then there are certain social values, right, left, or center. In Portugal, access to basic medical care is considered a human right or a civil right. And if say, for example, a right-wing politician wants a short career, they could come out against healthcare.
Mm.
Whereas in the US, it isn't considered that way. And I find that just outrageously offensive, and don't necessarily want to live in a place where access to basic medical care is an economic privilege as opposed to a civil right.
I've heard my son, who is sort of further to the left of politics than I, and it's fair to say, and going on about this, and I, until I read up about it, I wasn't aware that America was so drastically like this,
and dramatically changed in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Carl asked something about the process of how one decides if they want to be a migrant, and if so, where. And throughout time, for as long as people have moved, which is as long as we've had people, it's always been a process of unless you're a kidnapped and enslaved person, there's a certain amount of choice. So for people to make that choice, they have a series, whether they do it on paper or in their head, of push forces and pull forces. And then they have to weigh the interplay between these things. What is it that pushes you from the place you're from, and what is it that pulls you to a new place? The privilege of having Western Europe, or basically all of Europe, as a place to live and travel and explore is quite a pull. Also, a place where medical care is considered a civil right is a drastic difference from the place I've come, which is, anyone who pays any attention, is getting more and more divisive by the day. And imagine trying to be a progressive teacher in that environment.
Even now that Donald Trump has made his departure, as in gone into the political wilderness for the semester, even under Biden, these divisions still exist.
It is surreal.
Right.
It is absolutely surreal. An abstract intellectual concept from high-level college, critical race theory, something, by the way, which I would teach without hesitation, is just the notion that history has a legacy. You don't enslave people for 300 and 400 years, 300 years, and not have an effect. Sure. And in a matter of just 18 months, this abstract concept that almost no one had even heard of is now becoming the equivalent of even teaching about the history of race relations. As an anti-racist educator, that is just beyond even what I had thought was possible. People who know nothing hear just the word race, and they immediately, this straw man argument, you're a CRT, critical race theory teacher, you're no good. And of course, it's all anti-intellectual, and it can't even pass any kind of scrutiny. Yet, this is where we're at.
Well, yeah, very interesting. I'm so glad you're here this morning with this insight, your personal insight into the American society at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
As an educator, as a teacher, Paul, what and for us to better understand, our American colleague expats coming to Portugal, what's the solution? Because there seems to be a terrible intolerance developing, and it's both sides, isn't it? And that's the problem. There's me asking you a question about both sides. Therein lies the problem. It seems to be like two sides. Doug's written an article for the Portugal News in the last few days about Brexit. Same thing again. Two-party system, winner takes all. I know it was a referendum and not a two-party system, but the same principle is there, isn't it? Us against them. That lot with their terrible ideas. No, it's you lot with your terrible ideas.
Yeah.
And one of us is going to win and impose our views on the other.
Okay.
Well, one of the things
Go ahead.
I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
One of the things I put in the article was that I found this rather strange in that the arguments are simmering on. Even now that it's happened, people will still have the same old arguments.
At some point, intellectual honesty has to come into play, and stepping out of our own heads. What I would often tell my students is that if they want to think clearly about the world they live in, they have to step out, get out of tribal mindsets. And one way to do that is through what I would call a mental exercise of the Martian news reporter. Martian doesn't care who wins or loses. They have no dog in the fight. They step back and say, who's doing what to who? And we have to be very careful of avoiding false equivalencies, because not all arguments are equal and not all sides are equal. And sure, there's becoming a tribal mindset, but that doesn't mean that all sides are doing it to the other in any kind of equal sense. Take, for example, the pending elimination of reproductive rights. That is one side doing onto others in a way that isn't being reciprocated. It's authoritarian. It's totalitarian. And we have to be very, very careful not to have false equivalencies. And whenever anybody wants to push back on that, I'll say, okay, let's go back to a different thought exercise. Let's say we have a seminar of Holocaust survivors. And over in one corner, you got a table with 3 or 4 surviving 100-year-olds. And they're presenting their position. Does that mean for the interest of balance or fairness, we need another table with the ghost of Heinrich Himmler so they can give their positions? Because Heinrich Himmler doesn't deserve that.
Sure. And
their positions don't deserve that. And that's an example of why we have to be so alert to false equivalencies. Who's doing what to who? And that's what Martian asks.
Stephen saying the Martian does not care what happened 400 years ago. They can only witness what is happening now. It's Martian news. And then I guess you could ask yourself how whether they are Fox Martian news or BBC Martian news.
Martian cares what happens 400 years ago because Martian knows that the past affects the present. And that's the point of teaching and learning history. Take one look at the map of Africa, and every single border is a consequence of imperialism.
Yeah.
And the reality of Africa today is defined by those borders to large extent. Or take the US context of embedded racism. You can't really explain that without understanding that it was absolutely legal to buy and sell children on the corner with a receipt. And the only way that one of the ways that was rationalized or justified was through a racist lens, that the they, us, and them, they are lesser than you, so therefore it is okay to enslave them. And notice I used the word enslave, and I didn't call them a slave, because no one is a slave. They can only be enslaved. And by simply changing that one word framing, now we point the lens of accusation or put the oppressors on the defensive, just by changing one word framing.
Well, okay.
It's extraordinary, isn't it, that a country that's made up of people from different parts of the world and different parts of Europe could possibly ever end up having such a terribly racist attitude to life.
Yeah, it's shocking. And until the U.S. can start to become intellectually honest about their own internalized racism, yikes. You mentioned Trump.
Go ahead. That's a solution. For you, that's a solution, Paul. Is it? I'm going to frame it as education and insight and discussion, because this is with the political polarization of the moment. People have forgotten how to talk to each other respectfully, and you can't really educate people unless you create a context for respectful and meaningful conversations.
And if it starts with a position of white supremacy, which I'm arguing that for approximately 1/3 of USA citizens, that's where it's coming from, it's impossible to really have a conversation with them. And it slays me to think that they have to be disregarded from civil conversation if they can't play. And I'm not happy with that conclusion at all. But look at the evidence. When, like, for example, with the Trump type people and their attack on democracy itself on January 6th, people want to often dismiss that crowd as like living in their mother's basement and not having a life. And in fact, that isn't a fair statement. And after surveying this for some time and reading everything I can, there is one quality that each faction of that group have in common, and kind of only one. And it comes down to this great replacement theory, this notion that the whites aren't going to be in charge anymore, and they are going to do to us what we did to them. So that's what they have in common, and it's pretty hard to dispute that.
I don't think I'm going to even try, because because I could see that unfolding, frankly.
Yeah, and as a person living there and trying to be astute about this and feeling paralyzed by not being able to do anything about it, and then in the context of being an anti-racist history teacher, and now I'm tip of the spear. Target number one.
It's a shame that you didn't go somehow into the world of politics, because your oratory is very eloquent and well put.
Well, thank you.
And I'm sure you would be able to persuade a number of people to a more progressive line of thought.
And it would kill me.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true. That's true. Somebody made a very good point here. That it's a one-party system, and that one
corporate party,
corporate party, right?
Yeah,
and this is the thing, isn't it? Whilst supposedly left and right are taking chunks out of each other, there is another agenda going on, isn't there? Which would be useful to keep an eye on as well.
Yeah.
This is always an interesting conversation about where America's at. People are enjoying that here in the comments. We also have you here to talk about Portugal and cycling, and where you might like to end up, Paul, here in Portugal. As much as I think you like the Silver Coast, and it's been a nice place to land, you might want a bit more of a buzz. Is a sense I got when we spoke before. So where have you got your eye on to try out in Portugal?
Well, probably on Saturday, I'm leaving on a bike tour heading south. Um, frankly, I'm from Caldish to Arena. I'm probably going to take the train down to Lisbon just because roads. Thanks to Google Earth, I'm able to actually check out the safety of different roads, and I have to be aware of that. But yeah, I'm going down to the Algarve. I got to go down there. You know, the idea of warm winters, the idea of having a almost critical mass of expats is appealing to me as a solo retiree, ageless solo retiree who doesn't speak Portuguese. Now, in time, well, that is, of course, an objective, but that's going to be a long time off. And for my own like social life and sanity, I need to check out the Algarve, which was my initial impression, but I also wanted to see the Silver Coast, and the Silver Coast is beautiful. And wow, to invest for any listener out there, what you can get as an investment for a home here versus down in Algarve, it's night and day. It's such a world of difference. And the idea of having a big house and a garden and having it be like a place where I really feel like I fit in, I just don't know that that's going to happen. But what do I know? I've only been here 6 weeks.
You're going to go and find out. I think that's what's ahead of you.
From the top of the saddle is
yes.
I feel slightly ashamed, Carl, listening to this, having come back from a nearly 5,000-mile road trip, and I came home feeling very tired. And this gentleman here does it on a bike. Well,
oh yeah, permanent childhood. You know, every kid should have a bicycle.
I love it. Wow.
Plant some trees, Doug. Make sure you do. Bem-vindo, Paul. I too taught social studies in California for a minute. Absolutamente. Going back to some of your comments earlier, Paul, in my experience, unless one teaches history and geography in the US, they are completely ignorant of even the existence of anywhere other than the US.
Words don't express. Yeah.
Two-party democracy. The Electoral College keeps that from happening, and the US has other political parties, but they are heavily suppressed, says Rebel Mama this morning. James, loving the cut of YouTube, I think. Paul, verdad. And it was Jess who said, one party in the US, the
corporate party. Geography, although socially that is changing. Geography shapes history.
Mark,
they're the same thing.
Yeah. What, two wings of the same bird, perhaps. Donald Trump didn't start anything. He was just a floodlight showing what's there, says Rebecca this morning.
A catalyst.
Yeah, everything grows here. Going back to your more geographical flora and fauna observations, everything grows here, including people, right? Wondering what the landscape looked like before humans. Let's just say the landscape before eucalyptus here in Portugal. Come on, guys. Let's all go to the dark side here because we need solutions for this. We definitely need solutions, right? Sadly, it seems that society is in decline and the USA and the UK. Yes, it wasn't just Trump. It was that nearly half of all voters supported him.
There is that, isn't there?
And structural inequality. That's the Electoral College thing.
Yeah.
And gerrymandering.
Very open. Do not feel cowed or put upon the Trump type people, as I think you referred to them, Paul. We must, of course, if we're having a conversation, have people feel comfortable about putting their point of view as well. So if you are a Trump supporter, and many people are, feel free to speak up and not be put upon. The Martian, we talked about The Martian. Look at this, Gary Austin, Douglas Comrade. Look, what's Doug? In the time we've known you, you seem to have changed a little bit. It has to be said. Is
the Karl Marx reference earlier?
Have we having an effect on you, Doug? Thank you, Paul. I screen this all the time, but I am many times ignored. It could be the screaming rebel mama. I don't know. That is why many of us from the US are here now. It's interesting, isn't it? Sunny Wolf, what interesting discussion, Paul. Prisoners of Geography is a book I've just finished already and very relevant. As a mindset shift takes place and new positions arise, there are always those who wish to exploit. Do you think there will always be false equivalents? Is a question to you from Sunny Wolf this morning.
Well, remember that, like from a USA context, if we want to know why it's so polarized, just simply follow the money trail and ask yourself who's happy and who's not and why.
Oh, yeah.
When I first started talking about the influence of media as a teacher, I would say that the entire media spectrum, from except for the extremes, are controlled by 8 corporations. And now it's 5.
Yeah.
And those 5 corporations are anything but liberal. Let's get real. They're massive mega billion corporations who get all of their money from other mega corporations through advertising. Mm-hmm. And if there's money to be made by polarizing the population, that's what they'll do. And they're institutionally forced to do so because it's all about profits.
Yep. NPR doesn't get a look in, really, does it? Thanks so much for saying all this about the current state of America. Much appreciated, says Sarah. And hi from a working
geographer. There's not many of them.
Yeah, we'll have to watch. Ouch, Rebel Mama. We'll have to watch streaming of festivals. Oh, that was for the lovely information you've given us this morning, Rebel Mama, on all those incredible festivals. Sounds like Jedro Nemos is going to miss some of those, sadly. Slavery has very little to do with race. Slavery enslaves or exploits the vulnerable. History is full of slavery. Romans, Greeks. I guess you could say it's either very little or everything to do, right?
However,
Egyptians, Moors, etc. On slavery, unfortunately.
That's sadly another false equivalency because it was chattel slavery. The transatlantic slave trade was a whole new paradigm shift in slavery as a concept. When an enslaved woman's children's children is mere chattel or property like a cow, that is a structural difference. Mm. People would often say Africa had slavery too. And well, yeah, they did, but it wasn't chattel slavery. And the scale was completely different. Mm-hmm. An enslaved child wouldn't necessarily die an enslaved person. They could grow up to be king in many African societies. So that's a border that pushes towards a false equivalency. It wasn't until the transatlantic slave trade that all that started to change. And that was right after Columbus.
Okay. We're not going to get to all the comments this morning. You have sparked an outpouring of insight and comment. That's your job, right? That's what you love in the classroom as well, I'm sure, Paul.
Yeah, it was real joy for me while I did it.
Switching back to cycling from politics, although I'm sure there's politics in cycling as well, and we will not be. And I'm sure we'll go back to politics before the end of the show. But hey, Paul, any plans for the N2? Now, I think this is possibly also known as Route 66.
Yes, Sarah. Sarah, who I've seen on this show before. Kudos to you, Sarah. For 3 cheers for being ageless.
Do you know this route, the N2 in Portugal?
I'm aware of it. It'll be something for another time. For now, I have to see more about where I want to live. But in time, that I just can't see why I wouldn't do that, because Portugal's not that big. And I've been into bicycles for so long that the distance and climbing doesn't faze me, really.
Okay. We got lost yesterday, was heading to the coast from Ponta de Lima. Sue's also new in Portugal, as we know, on smaller roads, which I thought would be relaxing and fun. Yes, sometimes it takes so long on the smaller roads that the joy of relaxation and fun can go missing. Ended up atop a mountain with nowhere to turn around till the very top. Thanks, Google Maps. Get used to it, Sue. You can end up in some very interesting places in Portugal.
Bring a compass.
Yeah.
I think she needs to try the Pyrenees because I went a few up of those.
Serious grade on some of that.
Yeah. Healthcare in the US. Oh, we're back to politics, aren't we? Healthcare in the US is absurd. Between $11,000 and $21,000 to give birth in hospital, and the mother has to pay to hold her own baby. They charge you for that, do they? An ambulance is $1.50.
Hey, there's a buck to be made.
if you have,
they tried that with my mother, but she said, "Nah, just keep him."
Can you not get it cheaper if you have a corporate banner behind you? An ambulance is $1,500 to $3,000 or more. Portuguese healthcare is wonderful in comparison, and I'm sure we can all agree with that at least. Brexit, a bunch of people worshipping a false god, aka believing a bunch of lies. Remember, there's a script, a pattern forming here, isn't there? Remember, there was a country that made a lot of money transporting slaves.
Don't forget, yes.
Doug,
That's
did you want to say?
That's how the British banking system got started, with all this 150 years of tax-free extreme profits from the New World colonies.
I believe Henry the Navigator himself had a hand in transatlantic trade as well. Yeah,
early on. Yeah,
somebody else made a
on.
comment. I'll come to that. Yes, somebody else made a comment about that. An interesting Portuguese documentary they've seen on Portuguese and slavery. Doug, did you want to say anything about your piece? What was your angle in the Portugal news on your reflections on Brexit?
Well, having spent this year quite a lot of time over there in Portugal, I am always people seem to quiz me about the subject of Brexit and how is it going and all that sort of thing. And I thought I'd like to answer that, so I wrote the piece. And the point is, here in the UK, I think most people now are accepting of the fact that it has happened, that we were given a choice, and the choice was made. Whether you agree with it or not is I won't go into that. But I think
why not?
If you read the piece hasn't appeared in the paper.
Follow the money trail.
But it is, as you know, online. If the interesting part is when you come to the comments at the bottom, and it just personifies the fact what I was trying to make is that the divisions seem to be existing largely, I think, amongst the expat community in Portugal, because some people wanted Brexit even in Portugal, but I think the vast majority, being as they're living in Portugal and in a EU territory, didn't, and they're vehement about it still. And that's the whole point of the article, is that the old divisions seem to be simmering on amongst the expat community. And I've often had interesting conversations re this subject.
Yeah, of course you will. And there's nothing on earth like the comments section in the Portugal news. So it's as good value at least as the articles there, isn't
Absolutely.
it? So Rebecca, on the matter of the Algarve, Paul, I'm headed to the Algarve Fuseta on Thursday. I think a lot of recommendations coming in for you about the Algarve. Portimao is lovely as well. Jack Polly's there, of course. Paul, take a look at Setúbal. The biking is great here and the weather is really good. The Algarve is nice, but it's very car dependent. We lived there for a year. So there's someone who knows, who might be
car dependent for those who need a car.
I think maybe that's the amount of cars on the road as well, making it difficult for cyclists possibly as well. Maybe that comment there.
In the summer, it's I would think that cycling would be quite precarious in parts of the Algarve, frankly.
Yeah, indeed. People driving about in party mood as well, not worrying too much about other road users around them. Paul, many of us who support your anti-racist, anti-fascist beliefs, we also had to leave the US. Thank you, Paul. 3 Ps in a pod. I think this is Simon this morning. Thank you, Paul. Really interesting. Your thoughts embody the spirit of what it means to really be the change you wish to see in the world, and having made the positive move to Portugal. Congratulations.
Thank you for
Paul,
that.
you're an inspiration, profound insights, clearly articulated. You should start a podcast. I'd listen every day. There's another opportunity for you. Any plans in that department, Paul?
Absolutely.
I don't even know where to click half the time. I don't know where to click. No, I know.
3 or 4 other places in the world that have a similar or same climate. California is amongst them. Yeah, the similarities with California and Portugal are amazing, aren't they?
40 million people in California. Maybe
you could be persuaded to do a podcast with the right sort of sponsorship, Paul. Follow the money, honey.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Yeah, pay me. So much for those values. Pay me.
How do people who like the cut of your jib stay in touch with you? Are you open to such contact?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm here to start a new life, and the way to contact me is through my email address, which is paulhusby@hotmail.com. Go right ahead. And I got that before any other Paul Husby got it. And it dates me.
Yes,
Hotmail.
it does. It does rather, doesn't it? Yeah. What was that? Their early messenger system. Yeah, that's the first Hotmail address I've heard for a very long time, Paul. But there you go, paulhusby@hotmail.com, right?
You know how old a person is by their email address.
It could have been worse. It could have been AOL.com.
Okay, yeah, well, I'm not that old.
Go, but love this conversation, says Rebecca. We need more of this. I'm in Braga, and it's my last day to look around before returning to Coimbra. Definitely don't go into politics, Paul. It's for chameleons. Principle, ethics, integrity won't get you far in that world. And that's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
Go, Paul, go.
Thank you for that, Rebecca.
She means that in a good way, I think. Anyway,
Yeah.
I think Prof. Eusebio's had a little bit of an issue with some of your geography, but he likes the cut of your political jib, as I thought he might. Doug, I would love to talk to you about Brexit. I could never understand how the masses could be convinced that something so good like the EU was bad. How long have you got, Chris? Let's go, Brandon. There are a few people not entirely happy with Joe's performance, as you would expect. Vikings, slaves as well. So many empires were built on slaves, but I think we've addressed that in some way, haven't we? Here, as a Canadian, here is the great voice of moderation in North America from Suze. As a Canadian observing the US two-party system, it seems both sides strongly believe the other is corrupt, and they might be right. Hate to point this out, but Portugal was the first country in the transatlantic slavery trade.
Absolutely.
No question there, Kathleen. No question there. Good morning to you. Loads of comments, loads of chat here. Thank you, everybody. In later times, slavery was done on a more industrial scale. In many societies, they have caste systems that limited anyone's ability to progress any further. Romans and Greeks did export slaves to all corners of the empire, but obviously travel has improved over time, along with the movement of people and goods. In so many ways, it has. And we still have a few of these human nature issues to deal with, though, it would appear. I'm going to settle in Portugal up a mountain somewhere to get away from politicians and politics. Not a bad strategy. Doug, most people didn't want Brexit, and certainly most, in retrospect, don't. Now the UK are a laughingstock for several reasons. I know so many people believing it's worse than the miners' strike for family divisions. I mean, this is the sad thing of our times.
This is the saddest part about Brexit, is the divisions it's caused. And if I had the choice personally, I would never have gone down that line. If I knew the divisions it would cause, it almost makes referenda a bad idea, because
of course
it happened in Scotland as well, didn't it? I mean, as soon as the SNP, the nationalists, lost the idea of becoming an independent Scotland, it was Alex Salmond was on the podium and said, no, best of three, you know.
I mean, trying to make any complex, nuanced life issue a yes or no vote is asking for trouble, isn't it? I mean, at any level of politics, whether it's a referenda or an election, you can't do this to people. This is clearly what's happening, isn't it? When you try and squeeze so much into this one or this one, you choose. You know, and families
binary thinking is.
Yeah, it's killing us, folks. Paul, no, it's car dependent due to the way resources are distributed and due to the way people drive when they're on vacation. Yes, and they've had a few sag rush, of course, down there all over Portugal, all over the world. Between the three of us in the family, we have 6 bikes and no car. We'll let you have that lovely bicycular, if that's right, bicycle-based virtue signal there. Very welcome this morning, Sarah. Good gumpers, fondle that like button for this culturally rich show this morning. Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland show strong ongoing. That sounds like a Welsh town. Do you live anywhere near strong ongoing?
Yes.
The disunited kingdom. It's looking a lot that way. But then again, I suppose that's what happens when you try and squeeze millions of people into 4 nationality choices as well.
It's wrong to say that Wales is veering towards independence, because that's not true. Something like 72% of the people say, they put it the pro independence people say, 28% of the people of Wales now want independence. Well, 72% 70 odd something percent of them, hang on a minute, 72% don't, you know. So Wales has got a long way to go, a long way.
Do you think the Prince of Wales helped or hindered that yesterday? I wonder. Welcome, Paul. There's plenty of us here that share your views, says Kate this morning. Antonio F. responding to Portugal's role in slavery. Kate Gimblett, Kathleen Gimblett, but declared the end of the slave trade in 1761, the end of slavery in Portugal in 1773, but not in the overseas territories. That ended in 1869. It took all that time to end. It just got moved, didn't it, to the territories? And I'm just the word, the territories itself and the colonies just tells you all you need to know. It said in the 1930s, it died. Oh, in the 1930s, died the last enslaved person in Portugal, freed in 1869. Rather than yes or no, the better question asks, what can we do to make it better for everyone? Well, that wouldn't be a bad approach, would it?
Yeah.
We may never find a definitive answer, but at least improvements will occur. Yes, and it's ongoing, isn't it? That these things we're talking about can't be decided once and for all. This is all about a dynamic and open and evolutionary conversation, presumably.
Well,
Suze,
the
disunited mistakes, Tennessee Williams quote. Nothing new about this, it would seem. Go on, Doug.
The thing about that I was going to say about Brexit is a lot of people are coming around. I voted for Brexit. I've made no secret of that. This, as I admitted in the article, I'm not 100% sure it was the right decision, but I'm not 100% sure it was the wrong decision either. You know, a lot of things have happened in the world since Brexit, and political eyes have certainly been off the ball when it comes to sort of implementing the aftermath of Brexit. There's been the pandemic, and now we've got this trouble with Russia and all that, and basically it's sort of been put on the back burner, you know, whilst other things, more important things, were being dealt with, and I think that's actually not far off the mark.
Yep, the conversation will continue in our usual respectful and open-minded and open-hearted way. That's what I love about this community. We can talk about difficult things and just about end up still talking to each other, or at least with a commitment to try again later, which we may well do at the meetup, the Silver Coast meetup today from 1 till 3. It's going to be at Palmera in San Martino de Porto this afternoon. So I think we can take that as your last word there, Doug, for today on this Ask Anything About Portugal Wednesday. And of course, catch up with Doug in the Portugal news, where he has the article there that he was referring to earlier on, and make sure to read the comments as well. Thank you, Doug. Last word to you then, Paul, perhaps more about Portugal and your future here, rather than the past and American politics. Sure. Looking forward.
I'm just so thrilled to be here. What an opportunity and privilege, and I want to always remember that I'm truly privileged to have this opportunity. And I want to thank Portugal and the Portuguese people for allowing it.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Yes, well, a lovely place to end on today on Ask Anything About Portugal Wednesday with Doug. Doug Hughes, catch him in the Portugal news and here once a month. And Paul Husby at hotmail.com if you want to stay in touch with Paul.
And great to meet you, Paul. Lovely.
Likewise, Doug.
Or cycling. I suspect we'll see you again, Paul, in probably in a new part of Portugal, talking to us about politics and Portugal.
You make the invite, I'll be here.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you both, gentlemen. It really was an Englishman, a Welshman, and an American walk into a radio show, and the result was just as you said. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Ciao for now.